Okay, welcome to day 37, Exodus chapters 16 through 19. So, we get some more miracles, we get some testing, we get some complaining. It's all rolled up into these 4 chapters that we're going over. So, let's get at chapter 16. And talk about a few main points here. Remember, Exodus is all about them leaving Egypt, starting with how powerful God really is, and then going through Moses and doing many miracles. We are up to 13 miracles, and today we add 2 more to it, and not just to bring them out of Egypt, but all the things that He does for them. Actually, 3 more if you want to add the quail to it, which is a miracle. So I need to add that to my list again as well. So we start in chapter 16, and that's really talking about giving them food. And the purpose of this is about hunger. So Satan tested Job with his health, and now the Israelites are really kind of being tested with their hunger. It's about their faith in God. Now, God did all these miracles to bring them out of Egypt. They had walls of water on the sides of them as they walked on dry ground through the Red Sea, and yet they still question God, which is amazing. We keep thinking, well, if that was us, we definitely wouldn't question God. Be careful of that. People say, well, if Jesus were here, then I'd believe in Him. Well, He was here once before, and we crucified Him. We have a tendency to do the worst possible thing. It seems like all the time, or at least choose the wrong direction. Maybe it's just our human nature. Ha ha ha. So we are at 13 miracles. The 14th one is giving the food to the Israelites in verse 4. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Look, I'm going to rain down food from heaven for you. Each day the people can go out and pick up as much food as they need for that day. I will test them in this to see whether or not they will follow my instructions." This is important. I'm going to come back to this at the very end. He's testing them to see if they will follow His instructions. This isn't the first time. He's been testing them all along. Maybe He's testing you. Okay? Now, chapter 16, verse 17. So the people of Israel did as they were told. Some gathered a lot, some only a little. But when they measured it out, and this is the manna. Some gathered a lot, some only a little, but when they measured it out, everyone had just enough. So those who gathered a lot had nothing left over, and those who gathered only a little had enough. Each family had just what it needed. And I put an asterisk beside this because this is important. God has been in control this whole time. All this that we've been reading in the book of Job and all of this in Genesis and Exodus, this is really about trying to get people's attention to say, hey, this is God. Hey, I've got you. I'm going to give you everything you need. From the beginning of time when Adam and Eve were in Eden, He gave them everything. And it wasn't enough. They had to have the apple or whatever the fruit was that they ate. It wasn't enough for some reason. And that's really our human nature. That's our sin. It's not enough. So some people gathered more than what they needed, but there was not anything left over. And some only grabbed a little, which was enough for what they needed. God gives us what we need. That is an overall point of this whole Bible. And Jesus is the main point. He is all we really need. And we need to trust God. And it's very hard, especially when you have things and you've been blessed. And all of a sudden it gets taken away. It's very difficult for us. Saving manna, verse 32 and 33. Then Moses said, "This is what the Lord has commanded. Fill 2-quart container with manna to preserve it for your descendants. Then later generations will be able to see the food I gave you in the wilderness when I set you free from Egypt." This is important because I wanted you to see that they're putting manna. What is in the Ark of the Covenant? It's going to be the 10 Commandments. That's not the only thing in the Ark of the Covenant. 2 quarts of manna are also in the Ark of the Covenant. Maybe you didn't know that. I thought that was always a really cool thing to find out what else was in the Ark of the Covenant. Why do they have that? Just to carry the 10 Commandments? No, it's the 2 quarts of manna. And they were preserved in those quarts. It's like Tupperware. You put it in Tupperware and it lasts forever. But God preserved the manna in the Ark of the Covenant so that all generations could see it. It's still there. Verse 33, Moses said to Aaron, get a jar and fill it with 2 quarts of manna. Then put it in a sacred place for the Lord to preserve it for all future generations. Aaron did just as the Lord had commanded Moses. So Moses told Aaron to do it because Aaron becomes the high priest, the first high priest for what we want to say. We'll come back to that. Okay, again, think about this. Verse 2 of chapter 17. Once more, the people complained against Moses. Give us water to drink. So he gives them quail, which is a miracle. He gives them manna in the morning, and they have exactly what they need. They don't need any more. And then all of a sudden they're complaining again. They're complaining again in verse 2. Give us water to drink, they demanded. Quiet, Moses replied, why are you complaining against me? Why are you testing the Lord? Moses is trying to get them to realize, stop testing the Lord. He's giving you what you need. Which is another thing to point out. If they have everything they need, why are they complaining? So we get to the point in our lives where we're complacent and we're satisfied and we're like, I want more. I'm really kind of thirsty. Well, really, are you thirsty? Can you wait? Can you wait for what it is that you need? Those are things we want to point out. And then we get the miracle from the rock in verse 6. Strike the rock, verse 6, I will stand before you on the rock at Mount Sinai. Strike the rock and water will come gushing out. Then the people will be able to drink. So Moses struck the rock as he was told, and water gushed out. His elders looked on. Okay, another miracle, holding his staff above his head. So we got 3 more. We got manna, or we got the quail, we got the manna, we got the water from the rock, and the 4th one, holding his staff above his head. Verse 11, as long as Moses held up the staff in his hand, the Israelites had the advantage. But whenever he dropped his hand, the Amalekites gained the advantage. Okay, so this was a test for Moses. As long as he held his staff up above his head, they were winning the battle. So that in itself is a miracle. Okay, they wouldn't win if he didn't hold up his staff. So he held up the staff and they would win. Okay, 2 more things. Chapter 18, verse 21. But select from all the people some capable, honest men who fear God and hate bribes. Appoint them as leaders over groups of 1,150 and 10. And I want to point this out because this is the beginning of our government in America. This is the beginning of what a government really should be like, where people answer people's questions and answer people's problems and try to help them, not tell them how to live their lives. Our founding fathers used the Bible to draft our Constitution, to help them understand how to make the Bill of Rights, and that's why the 10 Commandments are on the doors to the House and the Senate. So, and all the biblical stuff that our founding fathers put into our monuments, and how the left now want to take it out. So this is a beginning of making sure we understand how government should be run. Not telling the people what they should be doing, but helping them solve their problems. That's a very dangerous way to say it, but that's what they're supposed to be doing. They should always be available to solve the people's common disputes, not tell them what they should or should not be doing, but addressing the issues that come up from what the people have chosen to do. That is really what the true government is supposed to be about. Then the last thing, and here's, a lot of times people say, well, why didn't Moses get to go into the promised land? Even by now you've seen it, and maybe you just haven't been aware of it. But Moses has questioned God's choice of himself, God's choice of what he is supposed to do. And then here we have in chapter 19, verse 23. But Lord, Moses protested. The people cannot come up to Mount Sinai. You have already warned us. Okay, he's protesting God. And it's not the first time, and it's not going to be the last time. So when they actually get to go into the promised land, God said, because you have questioned me, because you've done this, you can see it, but I'm not letting you go in. Ouch. Moses did all this stuff, but really God had to push him. And he really had to do it through Aaron most of the time because Moses didn't want to. He just didn't feel like he was up to it. Not that he didn't feel like he was worthy. He was scared to do it. Think of a student first time trying to step up in front of the class and give their first speech. They're nervous. They really don't want to do it. They'd rather be doing something else. That reminds me of Moses. Remember, he was pampered growing up, and that's part of it. We probably shouldn't pamper our children so much. We need to prepare them. Another lesson to be learned. So that's day 37. See you tomorrow.